The old wooden box sat on the dusty attic floor, neglected and forgotten. Its once rich mahogany finish had faded to a dull brown, scratched and marred by time. Tarnished brass hinges held the lid firmly shut, as if protecting a dark secret within. An air of unsettling stillness clung to the box, a palpable aura of dread that sent chills down the spine. The box emanated a strange energy, a silent hum that vibrated in the air around it. It was as though the box itself was breathing, pulsating with an unseen life. The musty scent of decay clung to it, a blend of aged wood and something else. Something unidentifiable yet distinctly unsettling. Johnathan Blackwood, a man of simple tastes and quiet demeanor, inherited his grandfather's sprawling estate after the old man's sudden demise. The estate, shrouded in whispers and local legends, was a rambling Victorian mansion on the edge of town, its once grand facade now weathered and neglected. Johnathan, having always been intrigued by his grandfather's tales of the house's past, felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation as he prepared to move in. As Johnathan began to explore the dusty rooms and darkened hallways, he stumbled upon the attic. It was a cavernous space, dimly lit by a solitary cobweb-draped window. The air hung heavy with the smell of dust and decay, thick with the weight of forgotten years. And that's when he saw it. The old wooden box, tucked away in the farthest corner of the attic, beneath a moth-eaten tapestry. Johnathan felt an inexplicable pull towards the box. He carefully moved towards it, his footsteps echoing in the silence of the attic. With hesitant hands he reached out and traced the outline of the box, feeling the rough texture of the aged wood beneath his fingertips. The box seemed to hum faintly under his touch, the strange energy he'd sensed before growing stronger. Ignoring a prickle of unease, Johnathan decided to move the box to his study downstairs. He wanted to examine it more closely, unravel the mystery of its silent appeal. Heaving the heavy box into his arms, he was surprised by its weight. It was far heavier than its size suggested, as if filled with something dense and unyielding. He carried it out of the attic, the floorboards groaning under the combined weight. That night, as a storm raged outside, Johnathan sat in his study, examining the box. The wind howled like a banshee, and rain lashed against the windows, creating a symphony of eerie sounds. The box lay on his desk, its dark presence a stark contrast to the warm glow of the lamplight. Johnathan ran his fingers over the box's surface, tracing the intricate carvings that adorned its lid. The carvings seemed ancient, depicting strange symbols and figures that he couldn't decipher. They were crudely etched, as if by an unsteady hand, and spoke of a primal fear, a desperate plea for containment. As he traced the patterns, he swore he heard whispers coming from the box, faint and indistinct, like the murmurings of restless spirits. The whispers seemed to slither around him, cold and menacing, sending shivers down his spine. The following days were plagued by a string of unsettling occurrences. Johnathan found himself waking up in the dead of night, heart pounding, to the sound of whispers just outside his bedroom door. Objects would move inexplicably, lights flickered, and an oppressive, unseen presence seemed to permeate the house, growing stronger with each passing day. The whispers seemed to be emanating from the box. They were no longer faint murmurs but distinct voices, whispering his name, taunting him, urging him to open the box. They spoke of forgotten horrors, of ancient evils, and of a darkness that awaited release. Johnathan tried to ignore the voices, to rationalize the strange happenings, but the fear was a constant companion, gnawing at his sanity. He was losing sleep, his dreams haunted by fleeting images of grotesque creatures and shadowy figures. The box, once an object of curiosity, had become a source of terror. Desperate for answers, Johnathan decided to seek help. He visited the local town library, hoping to find some information about the box, about its origins, and the strange symbols etched upon it. The librarian, a frail, bespectacled woman named Mrs. Hawthorne, greeted him with a warm smile. Johnathan showed her a sketch he'd made of the symbols on the box. The smile vanished from Mrs. Hawthorne's face, replaced by an expression of concern and a flicker of fear. She told Johnathan that the symbols were ancient, possibly of Sumerian origin, and were believed to be associated with rituals of binding and containment. Binding what, she couldn't say, but her warning was clear: some things are best left undisturbed. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a desperate need for answers, Johnathan decided to open the box. He reasoned that if he understood what was causing the disturbances, he could find a way to stop them. He gathered a few tools, a hammer, a chisel, a crowbar, and brought them to his study. As midnight struck, Johnathan, armed with the tools and a growing sense of dread, pried open the box. The hinges, rusted with age, screamed in protest as the lid creaked open. A musty cold air rushed out, carrying with it the stench of decay and the faint scent of something acrid and unholy. The whispers, which had reached a fever pitch in the moments leading up to the opening, abruptly ceased. An unnerving silence descended upon the room. Section 8. The Secret Diary. Inside the box, nestled amongst aged velvet lining, lay a small, leather-bound diary and a silver amulet. The diary was old, its pages brittle and yellowed with time. The amulet was a simple design, a circle enclosing a 5-pointed star, the same symbol that adorned the box itself. Johnathan's fingers trembled as he reached for the diary, his heart pounding in his chest. He opened the diary and began to read. The spidery handwriting spoke of a man named Elias Blackwood, Johnathan's ancestor, who had lived in the house centuries ago. The diary entries detailed Elias's growing obsession with the occult and his attempts to contact beings from beyond the veil. Elias wrote of a ritual he had discovered, a ritual that promised to grant him unimaginable power. This ritual, he believed, would allow him to bind and control a powerful entity, an ancient evil that existed in the spaces between reality. Section 9. The Box's True Purpose. As Johnathan delved deeper into the diary, he discovered the horrifying truth about the box and the amulet. The box, Elias had written, was not a container for an evil entity, but a prison for something far more terrifying, a fragment of his own soul. Elias had performed the ritual, successfully summoning and binding the entity. However, the entity proved too powerful, its influence corrupting Elias's soul. In a desperate attempt to contain the entity's influence, Elias had used the amulet, a conduit for his own life force, to trap a fragment of his corrupted soul within the box. The entity, weakened but not destroyed, was banished back to the void. Elias, his soul forever tainted by the entity's touch, lived the rest of his days under a dark cloud, haunted by the whispers of the entity and the fragment of his own corrupted soul trapped within the box. Section 10. Trapped. Johnathan, his blood turning cold, realized with horror that he had unwittingly released a fragment of his ancestor's corrupted soul. The whispers he had been hearing were not those of the entity, but of Elias himself, trapped and driven mad by his centuries-long imprisonment. The room grew colder, the air thick with a palpable sense of dread. The whispers returned, no longer faint and indistinct but loud and clear, filled with rage and a desperate yearning for freedom. The shadows in the room seemed to writhe and coalesce, taking on grotesque shapes that danced at the edge of his vision. He could feel a presence in the room, cold and malevolent, its power growing with each passing moment. The amulet, still lying in the box, pulsed with a faint, eerie light, its glow reflecting in Johnathan's terrified eyes. He was trapped, caught in a nightmare he never could have imagined. Section 11. A Haunting Discovery. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the activity ceased. The whispers died down, the shadows retreated, and the oppressive presence lifted. Johnathan was left trembling, his heart pounding in his chest, his mind reeling from the horrifying revelations. He picked up the diary again, his hands shaking as he read the final entry. In his final act of desperation, Elias wrote of a hidden chamber within the house, a chamber where he had concealed the remaining artifacts of the ritual. He believed that by destroying these artifacts, he could weaken the entity's hold on his soul, perhaps even sever the connection entirely. He left a final message, a plea for anyone who found the diary: destroy it all, destroy it before it consumes you too. Johnathan knew what he had to do, but a terrifying thought struck him. What if it was too late? What if the fragment of Elias's corrupted soul had already taken root within him, slowly poisoning his mind, twisting him into something else? He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the terrifying truth. The whispers hadn't stopped. They were still there, faint but persistent, now coming from within his own mind. The box lay open on the desk, a gaping maw that had unleashed something ancient and evil into the world. As he stared at his reflection in the tarnished brass lock, he could see his grandfather's face staring back at him, his eyes filled with a chilling familiarity, a haunting echo of a darkness that stretched back through generations. Johnathan Blackwood was no more. The end.